World War II, a global conflict etched into the memory of nations. But while Europe remembers Churchill's speeches and America remembers Pearl Harbor, one nation's contribution remains criminally overlooked. India, the British Empire's crown jewel, and the silent force behind its survival. In this video, we uncover the hidden alliance that changed the fate of the war and history itself. The largest volunteer army in history. Let's begin with something staggering. Over 2.5 million Indian soldiers volunteered to fight for the Allies, making it the largest volunteer army in world history. These men, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, fought not for money, not for conquest, but for a war that many barely understood. They were deployed in North Africa, Italy, the Middle East, and Southeast Asia, battling Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan. In El Alamein, Indian troops halted Rommel's advance. In Burma, they stood their ground in the jungle, defeating Japan in the infamous Battle of Kohima and Imphal, often called the Stalingrad of the East. India's economic power fueled the war too. Britain was broke by 1941. So how did it keep its war machine running? The answer again lies in India. India supplied over 70% of the Allied textile needs, 30% of military uniforms, and countless tons of steel, rubber, coal, and rice. Indian railways transported war goods, Indian factories operated day and night. The sterling debt Britain owed India by war's end? Over £1.3 billion, a debt they only partially repaid decades later. Forgotten heroes on the front line. Let's name the forgotten heroes. Field Marshal K.M. Cariappa, Lieutenant Premendra Singh Bhagat, Captain Gurbachan Singh Salaria, men who were decorated for bravery but rarely mentioned. The Victoria Cross, Britain's highest military honor, was awarded to over 30 Indian soldiers, some posthumously. Yet, after the war, these heroes came home not to parades, but to a country still in chains. Indian blood on European soil. In Italy, Indian troops breached the formidable German Gustav Line. In Tobruk and Monte Cassino, they endured freezing winters and brutal combat. Over 87,000 Indian soldiers died in World War II, their graves scattered from France to Libya, from Burma to Italy. In Normandy, while American and British troops stormed the beaches, Indian sailors served in Royal Navy destroyers, braving U-boat attacks in the Atlantic. A catalyst for Indian independence. Ironically, India's support for the war accelerated its independence. The Quit India movement erupted in 1942. Subhas Chandra Bose formed the INA Indian National Army from POWs captured in Singapore. The British, weakened financially and morally after relying on Indian manpower, could no longer justify their empire. In 1947, just 2 years after the war ended, India won its freedom. The war effort had exposed British hypocrisy and strengthened Indian resolve. The role of women in India's war effort. Amid the roar of battle, another silent army emerged: Indian women. In factories, they stitched uniforms, packed ammunition, and ran Red Cross units. The Women's Auxiliary Corps, India, trained women in clerical work, communications, and even driving military vehicles. Indian nurses served in war zones, from Cairo to Malaya. They were not just helping the empire, they were reshaping gender roles in Indian society. Political fallout, India's betrayed promise. Why did India support Britain in the war? In 1939, Britain dragged India into the war without consulting Indian leaders. In return, they dangled the promise of self-rule, a promise that was repeatedly broken. Jawaharlal Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi launched the Quit India movement in protest, leading to their arrest. Indian soldiers fought for liberty abroad, but their homeland remained in chains. It was this contradiction that would break the moral spine of the British Empire. What the history books still don't teach. Despite this monumental contribution, India's role remains a footnote in most Western history textbooks. Ask a British or American student about Dunkirk, Normandy, or D-Day, they know. Ask them about Kohima, Imphal, or the Indian divisions at Monte Cassino, and you'll get silence. Why? Because history is written by the victors and edited by the colonizers. But this narrative is changing, and you are part of that change. Rewriting the war memory. So why is this history still hidden? Perhaps because it doesn't fit the neat Western narrative of World War II. Perhaps because independent India wanted to forget its colonial scars. But the truth remains, India's sacrifice was pivotal. Without Indian troops, British defenses would have collapsed. Without Indian industry, their economy would have crumbled. This isn't just India's story, it's a part of world history. It's time the world remembers it.